Hey, welcome back. This is Lone Wolf, and we are playing Vintage Story on version 121.5. Thank you for joining me. So we've got the second round of fueling on the steel. I have aggressively coaled the pigs down to just 4. They're all Gen 2s, so I made sure I got rid of all the Gen 3s. The initial challenge with pigs is getting them up in generation so they aren't aggressive. And here's the all but 5 stacks of red meat that we got from them. But I've got my peanuts, and so we're going to let that go to rot. Um, I've started another charcoal burn, and instead of this being 2 by 3, it's now 2 by 4 by 4, which it already was. So gonna make a little bit more charcoal as I go through. And from harvesting the pigs and just collecting over time, we had a whole bunch of bones that I'm taking and turning them into bone meal. And the reason I'm making bone meal is that it's an ingredient in making terra preta. So we've been making, where is all that? So we've been making compost. We need uh, a whole bunch of compost versus um, the bone meal. But one of the reasons I'm focusing on making more charcoal is that it also requires charcoal. So those are the 3 ingredients in making the terra preta. Do I need the terra preta? No. With the high fertility soil that they added to the game, it's just not as important as it used to be. Boy, these pigs were hungry. Holy cow. I just updated their food. We'll get some more, but this place was absolutely covered like ants with the pig explosion that took place. And that was with only 2 sows, and then they had 1 generation, and then they had, well, so yeah, so they had 1 generation. I called out all the uh, non-gens or Gen Zeros, which left only the Gen 1s, so there were more of the Gen 1s, and then the Gen 1s and the Gen 1s had their piglets, and that exploded into the Gen 2s, and so there was an awful lot of pigs to kill. And the weapon of choice for me in culling those is the Falks. It's the only thing that gives me even the slightest concept of control of whom I am attacking. Um, I guess I've not actually shown you the results of what I've been doing. So this is polished Kimberlite rock, and that number might be hard to read, but that's 6,147 of them. These are chiseled granite rocks. These are the ones that I hit with the hand planer that turns them into chiseled blocks. And so it's limited what I can do with those. I can't turn them into polished rocks, I'm pretty sure, because they've already been chiseled. And to turn it into a polished rock, you have to start out with an untouched rock. So by hitting it, it restricts what I can do, but the good news is that I still have full rocks for building with. They can be chiseled. They're already chiseled. Um, so all of this is byproduct of me getting this. And you can see I have far more granite than what I do the Kimberlite. And that's with me totally focusing on isolating and collecting as little granite as I can. These are just plain rocks, so I could polish them, I could turn them into stones, I can do whatever I want to do with those. And you can see that my efforts that I try really hard to not break any kimberlite rocks and get stones out of has been pretty darn successful. I only have 22 of those. And you say, Wolf, what could you possibly want more than 6,100 kimberlite rocks? Well, depends on what I want to build, doesn't it? I haven't touched any of these, and I've not done anything to the wall around my base. And as I go through that translocator where I've got all of those berry bushes planted, I've just been collecting, and all of these are red currants. And I thought, this probably would look nice, really soften up the wall. So I've just planted them every other block. I haven't surrounded this thing because that's a lot of berry bushes, but this is only one. Why am I going forward? This is only one stack, and you can see it's covered this whole quarter of the wall, and it extends around just a teeny bit. So need lots of berry bushes. I think I'm really happy with this. You probably don't really realize, but for me, I'm really going out of what I normally do. This is me doing high-end design. I'm trying. I'm pushing myself to do things at a higher design level. That's just not who I am. So I put 10 stacks of bones in here to grind. And so we're getting through that. And so that's why, as I mentioned, I've increased the size of the charcoal pit so that I can make more at a time. Um, I do still have a good stock of pine logs, but if I go out to the um, tree farm area, I think they might be ready to be harvested again, but I'm not sure. I do want to put my path in here. I think it looks nice. I like the speed boost. I have not harvested the oak for a long time. I still have multi-hundred logs of those, and those are critical for the leather processing. The maple trees, all I've been doing with those is turning them into firewood. The birch seems to be, without me even making a conscious choice, seems to be the what I'm turning into boards and building out of those. And then look at this. Look at this. Everybody, it looks like everybody's grown. So now instead of the second one being hollow, because I didn't have enough pine cones to make a complete second block, now we have even more that we're going to get from here. This represents an absolute ton of logs. And using the technique that I'm using here in this tree farm, you can see that I'm not only getting back enough uh, pine cones, but I'm increasing it. But that's only accomplished by breaking absolutely every limb and leaf that I can get my hands on. I did get one more breadfruit tree actually stayed alive. I've got two more cuttings, and this guy's got 11 days before I can pick that fruit and I don't know how long this has been here, but I'm trying to get a fourth one. Uh, I don't need a huge grove of them, but I would very much like to have enough stock that I just don't even worry about um, fruit whatsoever. All of this here was uh, red clay, and as you can see, I haven't quite dug it all out. Um, there was water feature through here, and I dug everything out. It went very deep, like 4 or 5 blocks deep. So I dug that out. I still got some remnants here. And what I prefer to do, but you can see I haven't here, is when I'm collecting dirt, as I'm exposing the rock, I prefer to dig all the rock out, break the rock, and then cover it up with the soil so that we don't have what most people would call a scar sitting here. Like all of this was all rock and gravel exposed, but I dug that all up and covered it up with dirt. But I got to get dirt from somewhere, and I've just been peeling it off of this ridge here, and so this is exposed, and I need the dirt. So as you can see, I'm continuing taking this back. This also had above the soil was more red clay, so I've got red clay from here, and now I'm using this as a dirt source. What could I possibly be using dirt on? Well, that huge hole that was left behind from harvesting all that red clay got backfilled with soil from there. I'm also consuming it to make paths, etc. I have used an absolute ton of it to make this tree farm area. And if I'm fortunate, I'm going to continue expanding this because I'd like to have bald cypress in here. Um, I could do acacia, purple hearts. They're difficult to get seeds for, but I'd love to have a grove of purple heart, just so if I want that, I've got it. Um, Ebony is a difficult one to get enough seeds from, but I have made a full stack plantation of them before and never harvested it. But there's lots of varieties of trees. I've got very little bit of the larch planted, but I think larch is an absolutely gorgeous wood. And I have planted more of these, and so they're all doing good. I've cleared out what's underneath here, and so I need to clear that. So you can see that it grows very low to the ground. And larch is a tree that tends to give seeds up very well. So there's the tree farm. And all of this was really ugly through here. Cleaned it all out, backfilled it with dirt, so now it's not an eyesore. I've got a good collection of treasure chests. I guess I didn't realize this was an aged one. These are the ones that traders will actually give you good money for. I don't think anybody buys these. They're just here because, I found them, whatever. I'll probably never use them. I've been processing the heck out of my copper and making lots of copper and tin bronze. You can see we're having to upgrade some of these breader crates into copper and then bronze and iron, and I think, yeah, we've only got iron. I don't think I've made anything up to steel yet. So that's one of the sinks for all the ingots, is just upgrading the better crates. I've added more barrels for holding lime water, because when you collect hides, if you don't put them in the lime water right away, they just rot. So that's pretty much what I've done in between the episodes. Now this is a very bizarre thing. We're just over here by the quarry, and look at this. This is bone meal spread out here. I don't have any concept as to how or why this happens. It's at the end, so whatever it's going to do, it's already done to it. This isn't the first time I've seen that. That is just weird. Yeah, just checking again that it's done. That is absolutely weird. You can see we've got one, well, we've got a bunch stacked up on top of there. I really need to do what we shouldn't have to do, which is put a little shield around these hoppers, because you just see that sometimes the product doesn't fall into the chest. And so that's not a difficult thing to do. It's just something I haven't done yet. I'm going to swap these out. I want the bone there, and I want the fat next to the bones. And this I'm not so concerned about, but let's move the resin. Okay, I'm happier with that. In the end, this is going to all get taken down and organized, but we're not there right now. All right, we've basically got an episode recorded. I promise you we would go and use the stone quarry tools and start mining up that Kimberlite. So that's what we're going to do. I have to get myself prepared with food and supplies before I head out, and I will meet you back where the Kimberlite is. So I'm in my cellar looking at things, getting things restocked, and I decided just to look at the freshness time for these, and these are well on their way to rotting. So I need to get some more cabbage planted, which I will do before we head out. I don't know if you can read this sign, but it says rotting materials. So I have a trunk here that I use to set things up and let them rot. All right, so cleared the farm, planted 3 full plots with cabbage. I have to say that I really kind of screwed up because I let those get so old without paying any attention to them. And I don't know if this is going to be ready before I need more. It's not going to kill me. I'm planting more flax, but I'm not filling up the field this time. And why would I be growing more flax? Because of more windmills to come, and also let the grain go to rot. If I'm serious about making terra preta, there are things that I'm not doing aggressively right now that I can do. Sorry, trying to take a screenshot. Well, if I did, I haven't heard the feedback. Anyways, so we've got an awful lot of flax grain here. And I don't know why red clay comes out a different color than it does out of the pit kiln, but that's okay. The tan is the tan's an attractive color. All right, now are we finally ready? All right, we're here. And just to kind of give you perhaps a different perspective on what we've accomplished here, just try to get you a little bit different view. So I've squared this entire thing off. I've explained that. And I've also explained that it was probably work that didn't necessarily need to be done, but It's done this way because I don't want to lose any Kimberlite. So the first thing we need to do is dig down, and this is why I go beyond the Kimberlite. When I collected all the other Kimberlite that's already back at my base, I was using the iron splitters, and now I have the steel splitters. And that's a pretty hefty investment because each splitter is a whole ingot. And the steel splitters, you use 14 of them, where the iron you use 12. Which means we want to go down 7 blocks. I'll probably end up using ladders here instead of just doing this, but for right now, this is how I'm going to start. Oh no, I'm going to have to break a piece of Kimberlite. Well, I can tap it with the hand planer, and while it's not going to be available for me to use just wherever, however, it's still a whole block and it's still usable to me. And this is precisely what I was trying to avoid, was thinking I was at the edge, and really it extends out beyond. That's why doing this is important, but I kind of felt like I needed to get this going and not spin forever, and hopefully not wasting my time just digging out. And then not having to have needed to do that. All right, let's see how many blocks down we are. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so we've gone down far enough. And we're going to need to move you, drape you from the ceiling, I suppose. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So I just right click, that puts the splitter into the ground, into the stone. And just so that there's no confusion, I know this is exactly where I need to be. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. Now I need to get the right count. I guess let's do it this way. Hello? I got something above me? No? Okay. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. This is the line that I want to put my splitters on. But not you. So, with the hammer in hand, we do not left click this like we're pounding it, we just right click on it. If nothing happens when you do that, then your splitters are too far away and it's invalid and the mod just isn't going to do anything. The mod's not going to tell you if you could be farther away. It's just going to tell you that no, it's invalid. How the setup you have is invalid. When I first started using this, I thought, oh, I've got to get rid of all this stuff. No, you don't. And so this is, from what I've learned then, I've become more efficient with these. Wow. All right, so this is something that I realized as I was using the hand planer to touch all the granite, is that sometimes I was actually hitting Kimberlite. Now, I know you're not going to be able to read that well, but if you look at the top, it says Kimberlite rock, and then the next line below it says insulating block face. That means that this block has been chiseled. So when I was looking to take down all the granite, sometimes I was marking some of the granite and turning it into a chiseled block, which was not desired. But definitely not the end of the world. I mean, we've got 14 of them like that already. So that is our first block. And this is where we're going to get the ladders out. Once the pattern gets established, then the next layers just go way more simple and faster. And you can hear that we're fighting temporal stability in this particular location. I was fortunate on the previous one that I didn't have temporal stability issues. But it's just something you deal with. Alright, so I've got those splitters there. And one in between. All right, this is all looking good. After this, we're going to return to my base so that you see what do I do with these after I've made them. How do I turn it into what I'm after? Oh, my stability is so low right now. And now I'm taking poison damage, which is a new thing added to this version of the game. All right, I'm just gonna grab my chest and get the heck out of here. And that will meet you at home. It's getting dangerous here. Oh, wolf. Alright, get out of here. Alright, I will beat you back at home. So I just wanted to share with you what happens when you get so low on temporal stability. Right now we're at 7%. You get below 10 and you start taking poison damage. It's not a lot, 0.7, 0.8. As you go lower, you take more poison damage. We are finally in a temporally positive area, and so you can see that our temporal gear is rotating clockwise. Look at that, we're above 10%. I don't know if it's done giving me poison damage or not. I'm not sure at what point. I mentioned 10. Obviously, we're above 10, and we still took poison damage. So it looks like certainly at 15, I'm not taking damage. I don't know if it's 10, 11, 12 where you start taking damage. You can play with that and determine that yourself. The point is that when your temporal stability goes so low, a new feature in 121 is that you take poisoning damage. All right, we're back at base. We've emptied the chest out, and what we've achieved are these two giant stone slabs. We also have the Kimberlite rock, which has been chiseled. But this is what we were after. So I just have it on the hotbar, push shift, right click, and that places it. Shift, right click, and that places that. Now, the stone quarry tools include 4 different types of tools. This is a rough cut chisel. This tool gives you rock from the slabs. We also have the steel finishing chisel, which I put a backup in here because this one's almost dead. And we press H on that, and this gives you polished rocks from them. So some things I want polished and some things I don't. So the hammer goes in the offhand at this point. So where this is all Kimberlite, I want, it's 342 blocks of it, by the way. I select the finishing tool on the hotbar, have the hammer in the offhand, and now all I'm going to do is press the right mouse button. Not the correct one, but the right one. And as you can see, out pops beautiful, polished Kimberlite rocks. And that tool expired with its durability, and so we've got the new one in there. Now, what do we do on this one here? We've got granite on the bottom. Whatever's on the bottom is what's going to come out first with this mod. So I'm selecting the rough cut chisel, a stone quarry specific tool, have it highlighted in my hotbar, hammer in the offhand, and now I'm just going to press and hold the shift or the right mouse button. If you are able to read in this block info, it says there are 55 granite rocks here and there are 288 kimberlite. I don't specifically want the granite to be polished, so that's why we're using the rough cut chisel. Now I'm just going to press and hold the right mouse button. And as you can see, the number just keeps going down of how much granite is in there. Even though it doesn't show me granite anymore, that's still what's going to be coming out. 15, 10, 8, 7. Now at this point, I just do I don't hold that button down. So these are just normal rocks. They can be chiseled. Anything that you can do with a normal rock, you can do. So now I've switched back to the finishing tool, and I'm going to extract the rest of the polished kimberlite rocks from these two giant stone slabs. And it's reasonable for you to be asking the question, well, if you already had 6,000 plus of these, how many could you possibly need? And the answer to that question is, I honestly have no idea, but if I'm able to pull off building what I want to build, something that is absolutely nothing like what I've ever built before, the very last thing I want to do is run out of the material that I need when I'm building this, and then have to go out and find the resource. Then I have to collect the resource. All of that is very time consuming. As an engineer, when I start a process, as I'm going through that, developing my software, my brain is holding all these different pieces of the program in my brain so that I have ready access to it. And through the act of spending the time getting to that point, stopping and leaving that causes me to have to start almost from scratch. Some things I'm going to retain and some things I'm not. For me, it's the same thing in building something large. I've got ideas in my head, and when I stop doing the act and I return, I've lost a lot of those thoughts, and then I have to reinvent them in my mind. I have to recall them somehow. Something has to trigger them, or I just have to come up with new ideas because I simply can't remember what it was I'm doing. So this is, for me, a way to accommodate how my brain works. I hope yours don't work like mine. So now we went from 6,100 in some blocks to 6,700 blocks. This is this would be something I would not even try to do without the stone quarry mod. Wouldn't do it. Can you imagine how much time it would take for me to quarry this many rocks using the uh, vanilla method? Now, if I tap the rocks with a chisel, great, I get the entire rock, but I can't polish it. And I want these polished. So I couldn't even achieve this using the faster technique in vanilla, which means I hit each block with a chisel, just like you've seen me do with every one of these granite rocks that I am not trying to collect, but that's the host stone for these. So just as I can't do anything special with these, they just exactly are what they are. I can chisel them, but I cannot turn them into the polished version. You look at that and that. There's a very large difference between the polished version of the rock and the non-polished. And I can never make this a polished rock because it has been chiseled. So if I were to not be using the stone quarry tools, I would be spending 4, 5 times as much time trying to collect these rocks. It would never happen if I weren't using stone quarry. So when people are asking for recommendations on what mods should be going on the next version of an Aura Fury server, one of my answers is always you need to include the stone quarry mod, because one of the things that Aura Fury is known for doing is attracting excellent builders. And in my opinion, if you're going to have builders, you should be allowing them to use the best tools available to them. And the stone quarry mod, in my opinion, is maybe the singularly most important mod, uh, or on par with chisel tools. All of these spectacular builds, if they had to be done with just the hammer and chisel from vanilla, you wouldn't see the spectacular builds that people make. For instance, as does Solstin or, oh my gosh, uh, Kurazar. They use the mods that help them achieve what they want, and without those mods, they probably wouldn't bother. I know I would not be bothering to do this without these mods at my disposal, both chisel tools and stone quarry mod. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I hope you found it entertaining. I do hope it was educational, but if you already knew it, then, you're just seeing somebody else do what you already know how to do. But I'm assuming that people watching, many of you haven't done this stuff and maybe don't know. Nevertheless, it is my desire to not only entertain but to educate. I hope that I can achieve each of those. Hopefully, I can achieve at least one of them. Nevertheless, if you like what I'm doing, please consider subscribing to my channel. Please click that like button on my videos. And engagement is incredible, so please feel comfortable and confident to comment on my videos. By the way, I guess this is worth mentioning because apparently this isn't true across other servers. Subscribing to a channel on YouTube, there's no obligations to you whatsoever. There's no monetary requirement for you to subscribe to a channel. You can unsubscribe at will. There is absolutely no obligation, but it really helps the channel having people subscribe. As always, please do come watch my next episode. Thank you so very much for being here. Goodbye.